And she said, you can't learn, you can't work if you're hungry. And that's
true.
just true.
That's
I mean,
true.
like, how often are we hungry? Right? It's something that we just take for granted. That I can go grab a snack in the pantry, I can go spend this money here, I can go do this. But if you are legitimately hungry,
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Voices of Ward 7. I'm Dev Myers,
I'm Erwin Royster.
and we are here with Ernest Clover, our guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Dad. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Good.
Sure. So I think we're going to jump right in. Ernest, tell us a little bit about what you do and your involvement with food justice or food insecurity.
Yeah, thank you, Erwin, for that question. So, Ernest Clover, I had the honor and privilege of serving as executive director of the DC Dream Center. I've been in this role now going on 9 years this month. And I would say as I came to understand food insecurity, in particular in Ward 7 and 8, what I had to learn, being someone who came from Detroit, Michigan, is that while yes, I see a lot of carry out, I hear about mumbo sauce, I hear about all these different food cultural things, what I quickly realized is that there were limited options for food because Ward 7 and 8 are food deserts. And so I think from the Dream Center perspective, as a community center, as a place where we say hope becomes habit, as a place where we know that around the table quite often need meets provision, we and I realize that we need to step into that space and say, well, what can we do? And so it can range from the very simple, the after school program, where we're saying, hey, we're not going to have sweet treat options for our children. Like, we're going to expose them to eating yogurt and cottage cheese, or we're going to expose them to having a variety of vegetables and different dips to try and say, hey, what do you think about this? It also means for our seniors in particular, I just want to highlight them, that, hey, these are some of our elders who know the importance of, hey, I'm going to have butternut squash. I can't wait to have that.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I want my collards. I'm like, yo, this is a good time to start getting them. And it's like, well, where can I get a really good option? So it was saying like, all right, I see these two groups of individuals, for example, and I was like, what can a Dream Center do? I would say from a historical perspective, having a ministry in Southeast for 25 years, what we really stepped into was our prayer breakfast, which is every Tuesday at 8 a.m., and our reconciliation luncheons, which are the first and third Wednesday of the month, 12:30 to 1:30. And in these venues, they're a great space, again, to create space in the whole space for community, where people who might come from different walks of life could say, hey, I realize that I have more in common with a stranger than I would have imagined in the first place. Because now I'm actually talking to you and we're breaking bread together. And for us, we get to represent Jesus in that space. We're saying, hey, we're coming in love. We want you to come and be a part of this. And we say, if you're alive and breathing, you come to the front door, right?
Nice.
So those are two areas that would say we had our largest food impact. And then through COVID, we stopped all of our programming. So our after-school program, our mentoring program, hit pause. We also stopped wrestling and martial arts and all of that. And we also stopped the prayer breakfast and luncheon to solely focus on food. Because we realized that in our community, that at that time, if we can recall in 2020 in March, it was, hey, we're going to take 2 weeks, we're going to flatten this curve, and we're going to kick it right back on. And so that's what we were working with. It was like, hey guys, you're here 2 weeks, but let's just assume it's a month. And let's just say the little White House, that this property, this 100-plus-year-old home, we're going to have food coming out the window. And at the Dream Center, which is this community center, what we're going to do is have that be a hygiene and non-perishable food area. And so there's no COVID-19 plan. There was nothing on my shelf. There was no one I could call. And I realized in talking to the team, like, hey, we can't be here when our community needs us the most, and the writing's on the wall. If that's the case, we shouldn't be here at all. And everyone agreed, and we prayed on that, and we started, and the goal was to have 100 meals a day, and to be able to give any individual who asked at least 5 to 10 non-perishable hygiene items. From March of 20 to May of 21, It was 100,000 non-perishable and produce items, or hygiene items that we gave out. It was 1 million pounds of fresh produce we gave out, and 64,000 meals that came out. And the thing is that while yes, people might assume, oh, hey man, that's a dream center. It's like, no, it takes a village. And what we have really been focused on is how do we build up the ecosystem around Ward 7 and the people that we know, that we see, but also expand it to Ward 8 and other areas where we know there's need. So I would say food is so base for us because we look at Jesus as our model and we say quite often he met people around food. Quite often he met people around the table and he broke bread with people and the opportunity to really get to know them. And that's what I would say the Dream Center is super important for us to be able to lean into that space when it comes to food.
Well, I definitely appreciate the work you did during that time because that was a crazy time. No one knew what was going on, and it really showed a lot of vulnerabilities in our community, especially food. But just so we're all on the same playing field. What is food insecurity?
Yeah, so I would say, an easy way for me to describe it for someone, because in this world of technology, someone can be like, well, this is what someone say. It's like, I want to take that word and make it personal, right? Like, I want to tell you a story and put a face to a term or to a number. And I can think of a young lady who's in our community. She's in elementary school, who unfortunately has not had the best health options available, in particular through COVID, because the family was impacted financially. So when I think about that, I'm like, man, that's food insecurity, where you don't have the ability to have healthy food options. And I hear this as a retort so often, like, well, hey, isn't there any chain store, whatever chain it is, right? Isn't there that chain corner store? I don't want to say anybody's name and have them try to come get me. But it's like, hey, yeah, there are, and let's look at the caloric intake of these items and the nutritional value of these Twinkies or anything. And it's like, hey, I just want to keep it real. Wow, that might get you the calories for the day. And say, hey, you got your 1,200 calories a day. Hey, but what were they? What quality were they? And that is what I try to do, instead of like answering with a quick definition, is just say, hey, while yes, people can get some calories, it's what are those calories? What is it that they're consuming? Do they even have options to get good quality, fresh food if they so choose? Because truth be told, there's a lot of people in our community who know what's good and who know they would want it, but say, hey, I just can't find it in ample supply. I would even say, going to the store myself, looking for Lunchables. They're gone. All Lunchables are gone. And I know I'm not the only parent impacted by that, but you're coming and you're like, wow. An item that you know, and I give it to Lunchable. I'll say to them because they try to have a balanced little meal.
They did,
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, this is great, but they're in short supply. Why is that? Why don't we have access? Is all I want to say. So that again is just another story, so people can understand. Like, well, let's go to the store and go buy something. Well, yeah, people would if they could, and even if they can, sometimes it's not available. So that's another aspect of food insecurity, I think, to kind of, and I hope that answers it well to story.
Yeah.
What specifically, you talked about Ward 7 and 8 bearing the brunt of food insecurity. There are no sit-down restaurants, only but one in Ward 7, and Ward 8 has a little bit more. Where is it that we, or what would we want to see when we talk about food stores or full-service food stores, like a grocery store? What is it that we need to see? What needs to be a substantial food or full-service food store serving our community?
We see a lot of that west of the river.
Exactly. You trip over the food.
You trip over. It's like 10.
Throw a rock or kick a stone. So, and I would say, like, for us, I want to be able to tell the story of partnership, right, and how we address this. Because when I first came into this work 9 years ago, it was one of those things where I kept looking out, assuming that someone else, like, oh, I know, I see this stuff isn't working right or this isn't right, but someone who has that as kind of their bailiwick of service will be able to address this. And what COVID really stopped me from assuming that it was someone else, it was, well, what can you do right now? And so I want to encourage and also hopefully equip any listener to say, hey, what can you do right now? And it can range from, for example, during COVID, when we're giving out produce boxes, they weighed anywhere between 20 to 30 pounds. We have members of the community who say, all right, now, Mr. Ernest, I got Erwin, I got Devin, I got Miss Susan. They all live up there on that hill, and I need 4 boxes for all of them. Like, all right, you got it, because you're the fresh ladies, you're the young ladies, you can carry it on up there. Go on and take it. God bless you and thank you. So that is something that I said, that was just someone who knew their neighbors.
Yeah.
And just was like, hey, I want to support my community with food. And so that could be something that's low-hanging fruit that I think any listener can be like, yeah, what can I do? Yeah, Ms. Johnson over there, maybe I could get her a meal, maybe I could do this, or maybe I see what resources exist that can maybe be brought to this person if I just ask. But I would say for those of us who have the responsibility and the influence to really work in an organizational sense, it was really with COVID that we have always had partnered with Reverend Curry and Reverend Karen Curry and throughout the years, whether that's Moms Night Out, whether it's a prayer breakfast luncheon, after school programs, we found ways to partner. But through COVID, that partnership even grew more with Wesleyan Avenue Baptist Church. And they really helped us amazingly. We worked together to bring in these produce trucks that were 53 feet long and were 30 to 40,000 pounds of produce that we then, as volunteers, helped get out into the community. And so what I saw in that partnership was a widening of the aperture of need, right? Because it helped me focus a little bit and say, wow, look at some of the people that are within this body of fellowship. I mean, there were members from the church who serve as deacons or deaconesses who are well in their 70s and 80s, who are out there begging or saying, hey, baby, you know I can't stand, but could you get me a seat so I want to talk to everybody in this line and just let them know that I'll pray for them if they lift up something. So I saw how a community came together and said, this is what we're going to do, and the resources were already there. And that was something I didn't realize. Like, I was like, hey, Lord, the blessing's already in the house. There's people here in our community who are saying, man, I want to do something. I want to be a blessing. I want to support my community in a meaningful way. So whether that's praying for people, encouraging them, whether it's bagging the food, whether it's putting it in the car, or providing space and material, financial to help get the food, it was like, man, I really saw our community come together. And through that, what it did was it attracted other like-minded, like-spirited people, like Breakpoint, for example, who they, with Scott and Carrie and Pastor William Spence, it was amazing to see how they were working at the time when I first got there, like, hey, we have these outreaches in Baltimore. I connected with 2 people. One from DC who talked to me about Breakpoint and what they're doing in Baltimore, and then one in Baltimore telling me what was going on. I'm like, okay, same people, really? And so that's how that happened, and we have been blessed. And I think what I want to encourage people in is that we have to dream again. And I know it sounds crazy to say that because, like, bro, you know, we're in a global pandemic. I'm just trying to make it right now, and I'm concerned about these things. Another holiday season, I'm still wearing this mask. I'm upset, you know. It's like, hey, I feel you and I hear you, but I want you to dream again. I want you to have permission to sit down and say, well, what would a different future look like? Because what I've seen through working with community is like, hey, if we use Breadcoin, which is a legitimate coin for listeners, that is convertible to legal USD tender, right? But what they've done with Breadcoin, what Scott and the team have done is say, hey, restaurateur, Irwin's Eatery, right? Like, hey, we have a micro lending situation set up for you. We have partners in the community who know you, who want to support you, like Wesleyan Avenue Baptist Church, or like the Dream Center. And so there's already a market here where these coins are already in the market. And what you will do is that, hey, you have access to micro lending and you have access to a market that exists. And so we're going to be here and support you in your business and help you really get your business going. And it's a great way for us as organizations to say, this is important to us, Irwin's Eatery, and we're going to support that, and we're going to drive money to that and everything else, so our dollar can turn over multiple times in the community and not just get gobbled up and go west of the river and a blink of an eye, right?
Gotcha.
So it's like, hey, we need to find ways to really invest in our community. So meeting practical needs of just people eating just blossomed and bloomed into something that really has us looking at and trying to figure out, like, all right, Lord, we have an ecosystem here east of the river, and who are all the different parts and players that we need to partner with to really buoy up and address food insecurity, but in the process, we're going to touch on mental health, we're going to touch on economics, we're going to talk about behavioral health, we're going to talk about addiction, we're going to touch on education. Like, it's everything encapsulated in investment.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm probably going to ask you like two questions. So the first one is, how do you think a food desert impacts a community? And I know that's a basic question, but I feel like the audience, should hear that answer. And then the second thing is that, and I think you touched it on a little bit, but how can we influence policy to like change this?
So practically today, I'm going to give a shout out to Miss Jane Moore. She's 91, and she came to our luncheon today and just had a very simple little statement. And she's been a part of Gleaning Network for years, right, Miss Janie? And she said, you can't learn or you can't work if you're hungry. And that's
true.
just true.
That's true.
Like, how often are we hungry? Right? It's something that we just take for granted. That I can go grab a snack from the pantry, I can go spend this money here, I can go do this. But if you are legitimately hungry, it's very difficult to move to say, hey, you know what, I gotta do that, I gotta do this. It's like, man, I'm really just, these hunger pains got me, this got me. I'm hoping that I can find a way to get some food. And what I realized too is because with our children, for example, and I shared a story with some of our staff, and it was a young lady came to our, we had our 4-year anniversary back in August, and this person was there, and I was like, hey, you can go get something to eat. And they were like, really, I can go get that? I don't have to pay? It was like, no, it's free. This is a blessing for our community. So I even realized that sometimes we have to invite people into that space, even though we often come with these open hands. We say, man, we're here to serve. This is why we're here in our community. I realized that I'm meeting people like, wow, like that is still something that people need to be invited to at times. And so when you ask that question, it really, again, always drives me back to story, because I can think about practical moments of like, hey, what does this mean? And I really hope for those of us who might be middle class or upwardly mobile or anything like that, it's like some of the things that they might hear is just so difficult to wrap their minds around. It's like, well, in America, don't you know we got this, or don't they know? And I was like, hey, when you're hungry, or when you don't know where you're gonna lay your head down at night, or you have someone who's sick with some incurable disease, you're not thinking about, let me run across town, or even if I could do that, but I gotta make some hard choices. Either I'm running across town to get some food, or I'm taking my child to get care. I'm gonna take my child to get care, and I won't eat, and my child will eat whatever it is I can get for $1 or $2. And those are the choices that people every day are faced with. So for us who, again, are upwardly mobile or have some, it's like, can we just pause it ourselves at the speed of our brain and say, hey, you know what, that's a real reality that I don't and really can't truly identify with, but I know there's people who are, and I want to talk to Eastern River Life. But I want to ask them, how can I help? Or I want to talk to Dream Center. Or I want to go to Pennsylvania Avenue Baptist Church. I want to see how I can help, because we need your help. And so I think that's how, when we talk and segue a little bit into policy, it's like, hey, those, again, who have that privilege of influence, it's like, hey, you need to influence. And I mean, while I know some people, especially some of our seniors, they are retired, and they'll say, man, I am calling congressman, I'm calling council member, and I'm like, Godspeed be with you. Like, you do that, because that's what they can do, and they're looking for a way to advocate. And so for those of us who might have a strength of back and legs right now, it's like, hey, can you beat the street a little bit? Can you get out here and be a volunteer at a flash table at Breadpoint? And you come, and that partnership with Breadpoint is supposed to end up the church and the Dream Center. We're coming to an area where we know there's hungry people. And we're going to set up tables where we can honor and treat people with dignity. We're going to sit down and break bread with them. We're going to share testimony. We're going to share encouraging words with them. Can you be there early to help set up the food, put tables, put a tent, help clean up, and do all that? Those are the things that are actively happening right now that if people have ears to hear and eyes to see, they will see it. So I'm just encouraging those listeners right now, viewers right now, hey, if you can do that, please reach out to us because we can put you to work because there's more than enough work for us to do. More than enough.
Wow. So Ernest, tell us, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you? How would they get in touch with the Dream Center?
Yes, the easiest way is to go to our website, www.dcdreamcenter.com, and you can reach out to us right through there. The email address is info@dcdreamcenter, and you can contact us through there. But again, I want to make sure people understand, because we see it all the time, and that is because of the transient nature of our nation's capital. A lot of people come in, they dib in, they dab out, they move in, and it's like, hey, you know what? When you have a 25-year history, while your face might be one day or maybe 1 hour of a day, we've been here. So whatever you do, it is really a reflection on us. So if you're kind of not present or being like, well, all they gotta do is get a job. I mean, like, come on now. You can get away and leave and nobody, but our community will look at like, man, wow, the Dream Center got some shady people. So I want to make sure that the people who are reaching out really say like, hey, for whatever time I have, whether it's a month or whether it's years I'm going to live here, I want to be dialed in and really want to be a part of the community because those are the people that we really want to do life with. We have people on our staff who are in their late 70s. So, and native Washingtonians, been here their whole life. And so there's people who blood, sweat, and tears have gone into this work. So if you're that fly-by-night person, I just want to let you know it will be a culture shock. Because you'll say, well, don't you take a break? Don't you? And people do. But this is a part of who they are. I just wanted to say that up front. But the website and is the easiest way to reach out to us. And again, it's www.dcdreamcenter.com. And I would love to have you either come to a prayer breakfast every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. or even a reconciliation luncheon, which is 12:30 to 1:30 on the first and third Wednesday of the month. Those are just two really low barriers of entryways to come and see and taste and walk away saying, all right, I think this is good.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much, Ernest, for this. This was a great conversation. We appreciate all the work that you're doing, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.